Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to the water race public hearings this afternoon. So my name's Sophie McInnes. I'm one of the Rolleston councillors, and we've got Lydia Glidden, who's one of the Melbourne councillors. So we're your panel today. I'll start with a wee karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi ake ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, tihei mauri ora. Okay, Luke, did you want to start with a wee how we got here, please?
Yep, no worries at all. So I'm Luke, I'm the Cyprus Water Engineer here at Council. I've been looking after these closures. So short and sweet, why are we here for the hearing today? So this is part of Selwyn Council's public water race closure process. We started this process last year. As part of this process, there's a bunch of requirements to get to this point here. We have gone through those steps. We went to initial council meeting in October from the proposed closures from the applicants. As part of that process, we got submissions in a notification period. And since then, the council decision at the time, because we had the submissions, was to have a hearing. And that brings us here to today to discuss the submissions. A little bit of extra context, probably worth mentioning, is that some of these races we're discussing, the 2 Telegraph and 1 Highfield races, are physically closed already previous to this process, as council finds out as we do the application. So yes, some of these may be closed already, but there's still a lot of value in the conversation we're about to have today. And hopefully this can feed into our process and future practices. But just mention that for full transparency for everyone. And thank you guys for coming today.
Thank you very much, Luke. Okay, so the first speaker was due to be somebody from Ngāitua Hariri. Unfortunately, they're unable to come today. So we're going to move on to submitter number 2, which is Talia Jenkins. If you wouldn't mind going up to the desk at the top there, if you've got anything to put a slideshow or anything, then no, all good. So when you're up there, the microphone, you push the button on the right with the kind of little person, and that will turn your microphone red, and then you're ready to speak.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Te mihi tuatahi ki ka atua o te rā, ko a takaroa, nōna ka wai, ka awa, me ka moana katoa. Tuarua ki ka rakatira o Ngāitu Āhuriri o Ngāti Moki hoki. Tēnā kōrua. Tuatoru ki ka kaiwhakarite o te hui nei, tēnā koutou e te kaunihira. Ko wai tēnei I mihi atu, ko te kohurau te maunga, ko te kākau nui me rakahuri ka awa, ko Ngāitu Āhuriri me Kātiraki Āmoa o Kuhapu, ko Whitau te whānau, ko Glamorgan te pāmu, ko Talia Jenkins aho. Tēnā koutou. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be heard on this important issue. I stand here, sit, in front of you as a proud kaitahu wahine, as a kaitiaki to protect, preserve and enhance the water within the Waikirikiri region. I'm here as a 6th generation sheep and arable cropping farmer. I'm here as a concerned resident of the Selwyn district. I'm here because the future of Selwyn is important to my family and I. I believe deeply that the water races, the veins of the plains, be ever flowing for my generation and the generations that come after me. I wish to refer to the Summary of Proposal Water Race Closures September 2024 document. Table 1, proposed water race closures. For all three closures under consideration today, the no ecological impact column was ticked. The Oxford definition of ecological is relating to or concerned with the relation of living organisms to one another and to their physical surroundings. Using this definition, I wonder, how is this conclusion reached? Who has determined what the ecological impact is on the creatures who live within and the wider environment? How current is the data that the decisions are being formed upon? The ecological studies I have read are from 2011 and 2022. I have been unable to find newer data. These proposed closures and relevant council processes have highlighted the lack of accurate geographical data pertaining to the water race network in Selwyn. I think this shows a level of disrespect and disconnect to the value of these water races. The Stock Water Race network is one continuous body of flowing water, whether it be strategic or lateral. It is my belief that a detailed picture of the network as a whole needs to be established, validated, and understood before any closures, significant or otherwise, be considered. Today's hearing is specific to three proposed closures on Telegraph and Highfield roads. The combined length is just under 11 kilometres. What does the surrounding environment look like if these closures are approved? What are the ecological impacts, as I do not agree that they are absent? Reading from the summary of proposal document, these proposed closures, among others, are driven by a few landowning individuals, not a community, not even the majority of one. No longer needed by landowners is the driving reason, as stated in the document, for their want to strip our community of this living resource. The need for our water races should not be placed upon the shoulders of a few landowners. These water races predate any person living today, and that demands respect and serious consideration. I think we are heading into a very reckless space when a few people are given the opportunity by Selwyn District Council to decide what they do and don't want in an environment that is inhabited by hundreds of other people and countless feathered, scaled and furred beings. Other aspects of the environment that will be directly impacted are the aquifers, established trees and vegetation. When I think of the water races that flow throughout Selwyn, I do not think of a man-made water system, and I think the majority of the community do not view them that way either. I see them as a part of the environment, the landscape, the region, the wider ecosystem. Water races have been here relatively unchanged for my entire life. The concept that one day soon these rich resources will be gone from view still baffles me. If I'm honest, it fills me with a deep sadness. However, this is not about me. It is about the Selwyn community as a whole, the environment, and what values the Selwyn District Council choose to uphold. I am left with the same burning question. Who are we to remove this resource from I mean that collectively, from our environment? The Stock Water Race network has been flowing throughout Canterbury for more than 130 years. Yes, I acknowledge that when the network was created, the primary purpose was to supply water to stock. However, over a century has passed since their inception and their values and uses have evolved significantly. The water races have become a living ecosystem. This water has provided a constant source of life for fish, macroinvertebrates, eels, and native watercress, to name a few. The water has created a food source for herons and kingfishers. From the banks of the water races, birds, insects, and mammals of all sizes drink the water they need to survive, a feature of their environment that they have relied upon. There is a whole host of life that relies upon this water source. What other options are readily available if the waters cease to flow? With the ever-present threat of global warming knocking on our door, I think it is important to discuss that with the changing climate, weather events are increasing in severity and frequency. Here in Selwyn, we are vulnerable to flooding events. We need only cast our minds back to the beginning of May, when the deluge of rain brought flooding to large areas. Growing up, I can only recall 2 major flooding events that affected our farm and our residents. However, in the last 3 years alone, there have been 2 major flooding events. Mother Nature can give and take what it wants when it wants. The only thing we can do is plan and attempt to mitigate risk. Water races are a vital resource when it comes to flooding events. We own numerous residential dwellings in Selwyn and have 250 hectares of farmland, all of which are in serious risk when a large rain event occurs. Without the water races in our immediate vicinity, all dwellings would flood and cause damage to our livelihood. The capacity these water races have to carry away massive volumes of water should be viewed as a mitigation tool. I'm thankful for the presence of functioning water races, as they have saved our land many times. I invite you to take 30 minutes out of your day, maybe on a lunch break. Sit on the edge of a water race, anywhere in Selwyn. Watch the insects and the birds that visit. Observe what lives within the water and the plants that live around it. I hope you begin to see what I do. A life source, a vital resource, a taonga. Toi tū te marae o tāne, toi tū te marae o Takarua, toi tū te iwi. When land and water are sustained, the people will prosper. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your speech, for your presentation. In that, you actually answered any questions I had listed that I was going to ask you, so I don't have any questions. Do you, Lydia?
I guess my question's probably quite broad in the fact that if we're seeing, in the current economic climate for some landowners, if you're seeing in excess of $15,000 to have water races and your farm environmental plans do not allow you to use them, where do we find the middle ground for our people and for everybody that wants to retain the water races?
I think, being a farmer myself, when we took on the farm, when anyone owns property, they are aware and accept that they need to pay their rates and the specific targeted rates for the water races. It's not, it's always been there, and yes, I appreciate the current economic climate, but I think it's a small price to pay for the damage that the, let's be honest, farmers are doing to the Canterbury Plains. And in the grand scheme of things, like a dairy farmer, for example, 15,000 is a drop in the bucket per annum.
And I just have one more, and it's just around the ecological impacts. And if we're cleaning water races twice a year, and everything that belongs in the water races is effectively being dumped on the banks, how do we? I guess it's finding the middle ground, isn't it? Do you think that we shouldn't be cleaning the water races out mechanically?
I think it's a very small amount of races that are actually cleaned regularly. And potentially there should always have been a better way to do it that was less damaging for the environment. And I don't know, maybe there's an opportunity to find a better way to do that and create a smaller footprint.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. So next we have on the list is Melissa. So you push the wee button with the person there. Thank you.
Right, good afternoon. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Today, my name is Melissa Rusbach. I've agreed to come along and express my strong opposition to the proposed closure of these water races in any future district area water races. This is an issue that impacts not only myself but also the wider community, our environment and also our safety. I grew up on a farm in Southland and I've witnessed firsthand how vital water resources are in our rural areas. I remember a time when we as a family had a fire in our car shed, absolutely a frightening experience for anyone to endure. We were fortunate to have access to reliable water sources and local bodies of water nearby. These allowed us to contain the flames while awaiting emergency firefighters and then offer them a resource to hook into as needed, preventing any further damage. This memory stays with me and is one of the reasons I feel strongly about the value of our water races here in Selwyn. So firefighting. One of the most key reasons to keep these water races open is their role in firefighting. As many of you know, the risk of fire in rural areas is a growing concern, especially during our increasingly dry summers. Due to the amount of small fires that have also occurred alongside the railway tracks in recent years, we've seen firsthand how quickly a fire can spread, not to mention the more devastating ones that a few local families have had to endure. Having a reliable, accessible source of water can make the difference between a small fire and a disaster. These water races serve as a crucial firefighting resource. They provide an easily accessible water supply to rural areas where other resources may be scarce. If these races were to be closed, we would lose an essential tool in our firefighting efforts, leaving communities like ours more vulnerable to devastating effects of these fires. With the risks we face, especially during summer months, maintaining the water races is indeed essential to our safety. Flood prevention. The water races also play a crucial role in flood prevention. This has become more evident in the recent weeks, as recently as a community have experienced heavy downpours here in and around our homes. I'm sure many of you, like me, saw how quickly the land becomes saturated. It was a stark reminder of how important it is to have an effective drainage and flood management program in place. These water races help manage that water flow, directing excess rain away from our homes, our farmlands, and reducing the risk of flooding. Closing water races can disrupt this delicate balance and face more frequent and severe floodings in the future. Thanks to the water races, prevention of significant floodings can be achieved in some areas. Closing the races would mean that next time we might not be so lucky. Drainage Board. It's also worth remembering the history of how these water races were managed. Until the late 1980s, there was a Drainage Board that played a crucial role in overseeing and maintaining these water races. The board was specifically established, I want to say mid-1800s, to manage that water flow, ensure proper drainage and maintain the infrastructure that supported flood prevention, irrigation and other essential services that we still rely on today. Their work was key to the upkeep of these channels, ensuring that they were effective and functioning as they should. However, the Drainage Board board was closed in the late 1980s, and with it went much of the local governance and oversight that ensured the proper functioning of water races. Since that time, the responsibility has shifted in many ways that we have made it harder for local farmers and residents to maintain these systems. While I understand the council has stepped up to manage some of these responsibilities, we're now seeing the negative consequences of a system that has not been consistently maintained to the level that the Drainage Board once ensured. The purpose and function of this Drainage Board were essential. They ensured that the water races were properly managed, cleared of debris and maintained to meet the needs of community. Their expertise and focus were instrumental in ensuring the water races served both practical and ecological functions. Losing that structured management has led to challenges that we now face. Further steps to close or reduce the management of water races will only make matters worse. Wildlife. So beyond firefighting, flood prevention, drainage, the water races have an environmental and cultural significance. They support local biodiversity by providing habitats for wildlife, such as birds and native plants, including watercress. Many people, myself included, have seen locals harvesting watercress from these waterways. It's an essential part of our community's food culture, adding to the diversity of local sourced food that people rely on. Watercress is not just a healthy food source, but it also connects us to the land, to the history of foraging and living sustainably off our local resources. It's been part of our community for generations. However, foraging for such resources depends on clean waterways. Closing the water races can lead to potential pollution or mismanagement of water sources, and that would impact on the safety and sustainability of these wild food sources. Mental clarity. Another important aspect of these water races is that easily it's often overlooked as the mental and emotional benefits of being near running water, albeit a small body of water. The sound of flowing water, whether it's a gentle babble of the water races or the more forceful rush of a stream, has a calming and restorative effect. The serenity our farmers will get walking on his four-legged best friend along the side of a water race is priceless, and I'm sure the best plans and problem-solving solutions evolve from such walks, and maybe even a marriage or two saved. It is well documented that spending time near water can reduce stress and help people feel more centred. For many rural communities, these waterways provide a place to pause, reflect and connect with nature, a quiet moment away from the busyness of their lives. Having access to such spaces is vital for overall well-being, stress management and simply just a sense of peace and pure joy. Cultural. We need to respect the cultural significance of these water races to tangata whenua, the Maori people of this land. The concept of tangata whenua, or people of the land, reflects the deep ancestral, spiritual, custodial relationship that Maori have with their environment. These water races are not just functional channels, they have a deeper meaning and for some historical connection and guardianship. Irrigation. Furthermore, many landowners depend on these water races for irrigation. They are vital for maintaining healthy farms and supporting the agricultural economy in the region. The water races are a crucial part of the local economy, helping to sustain farms and livelihoods that support the wider communities. Livestock. Livestock also depend on these water races for drinking water. For some farmers in the area, the races are a key source of fresh water for their animals. Whether it's cattle, sheep, horses, deer, llama or other livestock, the availability of clean running water is essential to their health. Closing the water races place further strain on farm infrastructures, forcing farmers to seek alternative, potentially more expensive sources of water, or even risk compromising the health of their livestock. We must not overlook this practical necessity, especially for those who rely on these resources to run their farms and support the local agricultural economy. Plants, insects, aquatic life. These waterways support aquatic and semi-aquatic life. In particular, certain water races in our area provide a home for native fish species that might otherwise struggle to find suitable environments due to habitat loss in other parts of the district. The vegetation growth along the edges of these water races is another important benefit. Plants growing along the bank, both native and non-native, help stabilise the soil to prevent erosion. Plants are acting as natural filters, improving water quality by absorbing excess nutrients and contaminants that might otherwise pollute the surrounding environment. Beyond that, the plants and shrubs along the water races offer shelter and food for various wildlife. Small animals, insects and birds rely on water race environment for shelter, for breeding and for feeding. For example, birds use these areas for nesting and foraging, and insects can thrive in the moist, sheltered environments created by such vegetation. In conclusion, all water races are far more important than just irrigation channels. They're a vital part of our firefighting efforts, flood management, wildlife habitats, local food sources, cultural heritage, and just a sense of well-being. They provide essential services that cannot be easily replaced, and their closure, along with further future possible closures, will put our community at greater risk. The loss of the Drainage Board's expertise and management in the late 1980s has already had a significant impact. We must not lose sight of these crucial roles that the water races play in the well-being of our district. I do urge the Selwyn District Council to carefully consider holistically the proposal to close these water races. Let us work together to find ways to ensure that these vital resources are protected, maintained and honoured, so that they can be enjoyed by one and for all for the greater good. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Felisa. Do you want to go first, Lydia?
Sure. Thank you for today. It's great to hear from you, and especially hear you go into depth around that, because in your submission it was, I guess, a little bit rushed to get it in and
Yes.
say, I want to come and speak. I haven't got time to formulate that. So it's really nice to hear from you today. I guess my question around this is, some of these closures have 100% of landowner agreement. Do you think that they should still remain open even though the landowners are in agreement together to close those and it's on private land?
I do think it is something that should be just naturally part of our community and habitat and our being. It would be nice to think that they are just part of the land and not a choice to flick on or flick off as needed. Yes.
Do you think that the community would be willing to contribute more financially towards water races?
Look, no one wants an increase on their rates bill, do they? But, I guess we have lost sight of life and the joy it can bring. We have lots of little sporting communities that would love a little bit of a fundraiser. I'd throw $5 in the kitty to go past and see a group of kids splashing around and digging out a water race, and it's probably less destructive than a mechanical option. I think sometimes we need to come back to the basics and the learnings that could be held by such sporting teams or school fundraisers or some. I think there's a lot of different ways that can be looked into for managing that, so that the expense is shared, as opposed to, well, you live in Little River but you're paying for this water race in Melbourne.
Cool. Thank you very much. And as Lydia said, it's good to hear more of your thinking there. One thing I wanted to ask was, are you one of the affected landowners on any of these, or are you just generally opposing?
No, not at all. I just sit in a section in Darfield.
That's okay.
But I have history in the farming. I guess that's how I grew up, and I guess I'm pretty passionate about our water and water quality. Best I not start talking about nitrates. But no, I do just think sometimes we can get a bit complacent in life and we can complain, and I just thought this is an opportunity to actually put some money where my mouth is, I guess.
That's fair enough. I just wanted to check because
but
sometimes
no.
it's clear from a submission,
Unfortunately
sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
So one of your points was around how stockwater races are vital for the rural economy. It is kind of ironic that we've actually got the rural economy as what is being used, is the main reason that most of the submitters are, the initiators are requesting that the races be closed. So just wondering how, do you see can you see where we're going with
Absolutely.
how that's quite awkward, where on the one hand,
Yeah.
yes, it was created for the rural economy, on the other hand, you've got people who are now in the rural economy saying, actually, we don't want it anymore.
Maybe it's just a sense of overwhelming. Where do we go from here? Our hands are in the air. Life's tight, life's hard. Where can we trim our expenses? This is a huge component of a bill. Do we really need it? As opposed to the outside looking of why it's there. It would be interesting to see how in 10 years' time they feel about this closed water race. Yeah, I certainly can see both sides. However, I think it's something that, give or take, there's got to be a medium ground to be able to keep it open for
Fair enough.
future.
The other question I was going to ask you is around the drainage board. So that's way before my time on here, but one of the other committees I get to sit on is around land drainage, where we still have land drainage committees. And just thinking, so is that the sort of thing that do you think there would be any appetite to have it not necessarily as a drainage board, but some other kind of layer for people in the areas with the water race networks to look at it as a group together?
I think it's probably kinder for the landowners if there's like a one source that they can go to for drainage and water type things, because it is such an essential part of being and part of life. And it is, if it could be a primary sole focus, I think it would be beneficial to have a drainage board or drainage type, even if it was a private sector. I don't know how that works. But yeah, I do think it would be beneficial to have something specific, because there would be a lot of benefit for everyone that was having an independent water, whether it be within the council or not.
Okay, no, thank you very much. No, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you.
It's really valuable. So, yep, we've got one speaker left. If you can come up, Sarah. Thank you. I should add, you don't have to stay the whole time. If you need to be somewhere, you're not required to stay, but you are very welcome to stay and support each other. So it's all good. Just suddenly realised I hadn't mentioned that you're not required to stick around the whole time. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today. I really am pleased that the council decided to do a hearing, given the interest in closing the water races, or not closing the water races. I can only heartily support the words that have been said before me, and just go, oh wow, there's more than one of us. Yeah, that's great. So my early attraction to water races began when I was a toddler. Quite possibly I'm only here today because of the family dog alerting my mother, who was breastfeeding my younger brother, to the fact that I was not where I should be and was in the water race. My siblings and I have spent many happy childhood hours in and around the water race near our home, but that's not why I'm here. My recognition of the value of water races has continued to grow. It's disappointing that this is not more widely shared. However, people cannot be blamed for knowing how valuable the water races are when the organisations and the community leaders involved in the administration and maintenance do not recognise it either. And where I live now, I've spent many hours maintaining the water race and the culverts along the road and outside my neighbour's property. Not so much recently, but it's funny how distracted I get on walking the dog or the animals along the road. So one of the concerns I have is, which has already been expressed, is that every living thing needs water. The development of the water races brought vital water supplies across the Canterbury Plains. Yes, they were made by humans rather than being a natural feature, but they have long become natural environments and provide habitat for a wide range of flora and fauna. Without the water races, there are no natural or accessible water sources across much of the district. The availability of this water is appreciated by a wide range of birds and insects, including native species not necessarily expected or common. So Thalia mentioned the kingfisher, the kotari, that they are here because of the water races. We've even had a kotuku, a white heron, come through our hood, along with a few other species as well. Nearly every insect is of importance to the environment and therefore to us, but some are more recognised than others. One of these is the honeybee. And I suggest that if you Google bees need water, there's a few things like cooling. When the hive gets a bit warm, bees cover the brood area and other parts of the hive in a thin film of water and then fan their wings on this water. Evaporative cooling is achieved, and then the other bees fan the humid air and heat out of the hive. In other words, water absorbs heat during evaporation, and removing the water vapour from the hive removes the heat from the hive. It's hard to remember in the cold depths of winter following a summer that is not as hot and dry as they usually are, how hot and dry the Canterbury Plains can be, and also the value that the bees add to those plains. Another interesting article suggests that bees find water by smell rather than sight. If water is too clean, the bees might miss it. Algae, chlorine, moss and earthy odours easily attract thirsty bees. Given a choice, bees pick the most fragrant, nutrient-rich water they can find. Puddles, ponds, brooks, irrigation systems, bird baths, hose bibs and pet dishes all attract bees. Unfortunately, a lot of the flora and fauna that's attracted to water sources, when we don't have things like the water race, it's to the troughs, stock water troughs on the farm. And the insects and the birds cannot access the water supply in those troughs and often end up drowning. The water race is a uniquely accessible form of water for the insects and wildlife. So bees prefer water with edges, water with safe places to stand where they won't drown or get swept away. This is from an American site. So on cool days in the spring and fall, warm water has an advantage over cool water since a bee can quickly become chilled from a small drink. If you want to provide a water source for your bees, keep it shallow, provide stepping stones or rafts and wait for the slime to appear. And don't forget to put up a sign, ladies drink for free. So the water race provides all of those things. Resilience for us and animals. We know that AF8, the Alpine Fault, is a matter of when, not if. We know that when the Alpine Fault goes, it is going to be of such a scale that we may not have electricity anywhere for some time afterwards. How will we access sufficient water for ourselves and for stock when it is not feasible to pump it from 200 plus metres below ground? Now, I know that a lot of farmers are prevented from allowing stock to access the water races currently because of the points that you've raised, Lydia. But in an emergency, when it was a matter of life and death for people and stock, I would see that that would be overlooked. So I I know that rules are changed and tightened, but the water race was used for its intended purpose following the 2010 quake by our neighbours. And I'd also like to recognise the points that have been made about providing a drainage network when the water race was closed across a neighbour's property unofficially. They have water on their property that they didn't used to have when the culvert was there provided by the water race, and it is actually getting into their garage, and the water is provided for firefighting. The big issue is cost. Because of the status water races are given, they are much more expensive to maintain. There's various consents and fish screens and all sorts of other things that are required for the water race. The cost of the water race has long been an issue, one that I have raised over many submissions to council. People do not want to pay for things they do not value, and people do not see value in the water races, as highlighted previously. The commonly recurring theme is that they should be user pays. I am classified as a user as the water race goes across the front of my boundary. When I say the water race, it's 1 or 2 centimetres sometimes. It's bee friendly. In a rural area, we're not farmers. This is a cost of $465 per annum, or this year. In an urban area, I would pay a fraction of the cost for the same level of service. And recognising that farmers pay a lot more than that, the proportion of income and the ability to offset those costs is a difference. However, I do believe that paying for maintaining the water race is something that I am prepared to do. I would hope that others were prepared to do it if they were educated on the importance of the water races, and it is the way that we charge for this that makes it unreasonable. People say that it should be user pays, but who are the users? The farmers don't want them as they are too expensive and they have invested in other sources. People in urban areas don't necessarily want them. But how do you charge the true users, the birds, bees and insects that rely on this source of water? And ultimately, we are all the users because we benefit from the environment that nurtures and provides for us. The status of the water races will not change if the value is not recognised, and so I'd like to see this as a stepping stone towards better recognising the value of the water races. I know that my farming neighbours are one of the drivers of closing the water race that runs through us, but not because they strongly think that the water race should be closed, but it's the sheer cost of maintaining something that's there, and if a better way could be found for reducing the cost of that, then this wouldn't have happened. They recognise the ecological value, but it's just the sheer cost that it's offset by. So in summary, the water races have value and should not be closed. Alternative solutions need to be sought for how the water sources are recognised and managed and ultimately paid for. Sometimes we can't just take, we have to give, and the value of a river is not questioned. So I've taken a note of some of the questions that you've raised previously and have tried to cover some of that in the presentation that I've made, but just want to acknowledge that not all water races are cleaned, that used to happen, but that was given up a long time ago. There's no direct benefit for the cost of having the water race or the cost of the rates we pay, other than the fact that the water races exist. And I presume that the water race subcommittee of council has long gone. That was the way that the community and the various different users and interests in the water races were recognised in times gone by. So, are there any questions?
Okay, I can go first again. You raised some really good points, and the thing that sticks with me is, the user pays and who is the user, or who are the users. And so that's, I think, the really muddy bit, no pun intended, of where we sit in this. The amenity rate this coming year will be $54. It'll be over $100 in 5 years just for the amenity rate. And so, we're debt funding improvements to the water race network. And, that's the hard part, isn't it? Is that we're going to take on debt to improve the intakes that need maintenance and repair. So there is a big conversation for us to have around how's this paid for? How do we make this work for everybody? So I really appreciate the points that you've put forward here. And, the thing that weighs in my mind is efficient use of water, which we all want for all of our community, whether it's drinking water, water race water, irrigation water. And so how do we have efficient use of water as well? And, I wonder if you've got any ideas around that, or if you've got any ideas around how we pay for this. And I don't mean to make this fully about economic conditions, and I've written lots and lots of notes about what you've said, and really taking that on board. But I'm looking for ideas here on how we can find some middle ground.
Thank you, I appreciate that. A huge part of the cost, I think, goes to the consenting, and because it's not recognised as a natural water source, the cost is increased. The need for fish screens and all sorts of other care that happens that doesn't happen in a river. And that's why I say that the cost of, or the value of rivers is not questioned. The water races have been around for such a long time and have become so established across the Canterbury Plains that it would be nice if the actual status of them was changed so that they could be recognised for what they are. They're not necessarily there to provide the stock water or the house drinking water that used to be provided for, and actually recognise them for the amenity value. And hopefully, if that was to happen, the cost side could be addressed a little bit, because it's not the purpose that it's there for has changed. I recognise that it's hugely expensive, and it's about finding a balance. And I think even, our farming neighbours recognise that they're prepared to pay a cost. It's just how much it is, and putting that against the unseen value of water races, because every single farmer values bees.
Okay, thank you. Just thinking about bees, yes, they're valued by farmers, but they're not, honeybees aren't a native species. I don't know enough about the native bees, though, from that end, but they are good. Sorry, my computer has decided to die on me, which is really annoying because it is plugged in, and that's where all my questions were. And it's literally just decided to restart. Trying to remember what I was going to ask you. So in terms of the cost of things, just thinking, so as you mentioned, obviously at the moment landowners are required to maintain and consent any materials, whatever they go to do with water races. But they're not necessarily the primary user. So some farmers do still use the water races, especially if they're dryland farmers. Bit of a rare beast these days, but that is, it does exist. If it was a case that more broadly the cost was spread across the entire district, do you think that farmers would be willing to allow council workers to come in and do work on the races that are in their land? Like, how do you think that would go down?
bit of being pushed, kicking and shoving, or pulled, kicking and shoving into that case. A lot of farmers now recognise that and accept that, as has been said, as part of the cost of doing farming. I think that the value of water races, because of the way they were traditionally used, is not recognised. But if it was, people would be more open to discussing it and finding solutions. And that's including financial solutions and what it takes to keep the water alive. You know, there's been talk about the size of the water races and the place it provides for plants to thrive. And one of the saddest sights I see is when people spray around the water races. And it's just dead and the banks collapsing. I think it's done from a natural human desire to have tidiness without recognising that tidiness kills. And so there is some education that is required around the whole concept of how to maintain water races and how to manage water races. And maybe it is something that we all do together as we are in other parts of the environment. And you know, the concept of community groups adopting the water race as much as they adopt a piece of river.
Yeah, fair enough. Just thinking that we've been doing a lot of work recently around how to maintain land drainage for similar reasons with people spraying and how do you maintain it. So I'm just wondering how much crossover there might be. Different style of watercourse, but it's still, in terms of ecologically, there's still the same background reason to a lot of it. The only other question I had was, so for instance with these ones, in many cases, several of you have, to be honest, noted that the mapping that we have at the moment is not brilliant, and sometimes that's because people have changed diverted a race or unofficially closed something. So yes, acknowledging that the maps aren't as accurate as we would like them to be. But in terms of water races that are effectively dry already, sometimes then is that worth fighting for to keep it open?
Sometimes the water race that goes past us is closed off and it dries up, and I kind of give them a few days to go, all right, what's going on here? And then I do a snap, send, solve, and then I give a few more days for that to be actioned. And it is a bit frustrating that that stop-start of the water race makes it more difficult to maintain, because then it doesn't take much to block the water race, and then one twig just gathers more stuff and the water race becomes blocked. And it would be good to maintain them in a slightly better way. But even the ones that have effectively dried up, it's still good to have the culverts or the ditches there, because it provides a bit of drainage, and I don't think it's appreciated how much drainage it gives until after they're gone, as the neighbours with the flooding garage would probably attest to.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So if there is the opportunity to get water to places where it's needed through reviewing the exercise, that's great. And I know some water races have officially and legally closed, far too many kilometres of them, but let's try and put a line in the Canterbury Plains here and say, you know, stop doing this. Let's try and find a different way.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sarah. Okay, so that's the end of our speakers today. So the what happens next part is that on Thursday morning we will be doing our deliberations to come up with a decision on where we go from here. I believe they're live streamed as well. Yes. Yep. So you can watch that on YouTube if you like, or you can come here and listen to us. But it might be more comfortable where you've got a cup of tea and everything. And then that will be communicated through. I think we'll probably send you guys information on the decision, but it'll also be published publicly because we have to. And it'll also go to first. It'll go through to a council meeting for approval, whatever our decision is there. And then, presuming that the rest of the council agrees with what we've decided, then that will be what happens. So yeah, thank you very much for your time, ladies. You were among, I think it was 9 submitters in all, so, and some of that was to do with other races that aren't being considered at the end of the day here. But yeah, well, thank you very much for your time and for your words. Thank you also to staff. You guys do a lot of work as well. And yeah, I'm sure we'll be hammering you guys with some questions on Thursday, so be prepared. And yeah, do you want some things from staff now or during deliberations?
For deliberations.
Okay. Okay, we'll communicate that now. Cool.
Thank you. I just have a couple of things that I'd like for deliberations, just to give you some time to get those together, rather than me surprising you on Thursday morning and not being able to have the information handy. So the information I was after is the ecological impact report. I would like to know on the closures the location of the landowners who opposed the closures and are affected. And can you just provide some guidance on the clarity of cleaning required for the water races and the spraying component of those? Thank you.
I should probably add a question in there as well. Mine was going to be mostly around so the rates that are taken from farmers and from anyone who pays the amenity rate. How do we spend that? Just a wee summary of how we spend that now would be really good to know. Sorry? Well, that's the job. Ask annoying questions. Yeah, and if we think of any other questions, we can email them through probably tonight if we can, because then at least we give you a full day to answer them, and hopefully we've covered everything else. But you guys are probably quite good at predicting what we might ask next. Anything else there?
No.
No, all good. Okay, we'll close with karakia. I'll use the short one because my window's all closed when I closed my computer. Unahia, te pau, kia watia, ai, kua watia. Thank you very much.